that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
Within the first decade of Drag Race winners, we saw a lot of variety within each of the spots in the winner's circle. By the time Jinkx came along, she was really a breath of fresh air, and was kind of the first comedy queen to win a season. So let's get into the mind of the first ever double winner of the franchise. But before we start, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a monthly subscription-based company that provides you with easy to make food meals. In fact, you can get farm to table quality with every HelloFresh box. HelloFresh's seasonal ingredients are picked at their peak ripeness and travel from the farm to your doorstep in less than 7 days for fresh flavor in every bite. Oh, you're having a mental block and can't think of new recipes? Well, take a bite out of something new with options to please even the pickiest of eaters. And I know a lot of you are picky eaters, but with HelloFresh, you'll always find meals that everyone at the table will enjoy. This summer, spend less time meal planning and use HelloFresh's pre-portioned ingredients that make it easy to get cooking quick. The good thing is that no matter your lifestyle, you'll always find delicious recipes on the HelloFresh menu. You can even swap proteins and sides to make the recipe just how you like it. Honestly, HelloFresh has saved me so much time and helped me learn so much about cooking. The recipes were really easy to learn, and the best part was that each amount of food they provided me with left me completely satisfied. Go to HelloFresh.com and use code GREENGAY16 at checkout for 16 free meals, plus free shipping. Look, it's important you guys try out new things, so make sure to give this a shot. Now, back to the video. Jinkx considers herself to be the drag daughter of Peaches Christ, who is one of the most highly respected drag queens within the community, who has been around long before Drag Race ever became a thing. Peaches is also a queen that Bob the Drag Queen has attributed a lot of his inspiration from in his earlier days. And she's really just a legend all around in the world of drag. So it makes sense that she'd end up being a point of reference for queens like Jinkx Monsoon. It was reflected, for example, with just how in touch Jinkx was with her sense of comedy, being able to trust her instincts even in the earlier days of her career, where she didn't yet have the established credentials that she has now. Despite this, her original drag name was gonna be Heidi Destruction, but luckily she ended up going with the name that we all know today. The name Jinkx refers to her real name, Jarek, which stems from what her friends would call her when she spent time at the SMYRC. The SMYRC stands for the Sexual Minority Youth Resource Center, which is an organization that creates supportive and safe environments for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning youth within the city. Jinkx actually attributes the start of her drag career to this organization for allowing her to foster her own talents and authentically be herself.
Jinxalicious definition make the gay boys horny. Everybody loves me cause I'm cheesy and I'm corny. You can see me, you can tease me. If you pay me, you can squeeze me. It don't take a lot to please me cause you know this bitch is easy.
After coming out at the age of 14, she had been feeling really alone, being the only out gay person in middle school. Yet she was able to learn through friends about the SMYRC and immediately felt at home to be with so many people that came from similar experiences like her. It was actually while organizing an event titled The Queer Winter Formal that she decided to dress up in drag as the Queen of Hearts, which got a lot of positive reactions from the community. So she decided to see where it would take her. Over the next couple of months, she'd occasionally get in drag, along with dabbling in many of her other talents as her skills got strengthened. Now, despite the fact that Jinkx benefited a lot from this queer youth organization, that's not to imply that Jinkx didn't have a supportive family at home. According to Jinkx, her grandmother and her aunt played key roles in providing her a safe and non-judgmental environment for her. Granted, her mom had a more difficult time accepting how unique her child was, but it didn't take long before her mom realized that Jinkx wasn't gonna find true happiness if she wasn't allowed to be herself. So she quickly became supportive of her. And so the concept of Jinkx Monsoon was born. In the years leading up to season 5, Jinkx formed a pretty good working relationship with queens like Ben de la Creme and Robbie Turner within the Seattle drag scene. Jinkx ended up building some animosity around some random drag queens within the Seattle drag scene, and was now earning really good gigs that everyone else wanted. That was until one day, this whole situation was causing Jinkx a lot of unwanted anxiety before having to do a very important performance for a show. That's when none other than Robbie Turner,
I didn't realize this was happening today,
told her, quote, "Let it just be water off a duck's back. Don't even listen to them." That's a quote that would end up staying with Jinkx. And shortly before going to film season 5, Robbie told Jinkx to remember that whatever happens, to just let it be water off a duck's back. and so Jinkx now had a perfectly marketable catchphrase for television. What's interesting is that Jinkx considered auditioning for the show since season 2, but never actually went through with it until after the airing of season 4, which contained a huge variety in terms of personalities, and was heavily inspired by queens like Chad Michaels or Sharon Needles, which was fair. I mean, I can't really imagine Jinkx succeeding had she competed, let's say, on season 3, where the majority of the challenges were cemented around design or sewing. But regardless, season 5 would be the first time she auditioned for the show, and was cast immediately. Jinkx getting on season 5 was a huge achievement for the Seattle drag community, and she's considered to be the first true Seattle queen to compete. Plus, I mean, these were the early days of Drag Race, so when Jinkx walked into the workroom, the majority of the queens didn't really see her as competition. She was just sort of one of the funny queens that relied on camp for their drag persona, which there wasn't anything wrong with. But I think by that point, a lot of the outlook of drag was dominated by the pageant system, which strongly reinforced specific rules around what a drag queen should look like and compose herself as. Naturally, we all know that Jinkx would go on to do really well on season 5, earning herself 2 challenge wins and placing high almost every other episode she was in. This placed a target on her early on, since a lot of the queens were perplexed as to why Jinkx was able to win some episodes despite walking the runway in very questionable outfits. This created the theme of Jinkx being the sort of underdog, with her own drag persona being so vastly different from the other queens, which made her feel like the odd one out of the group. Although Jinkx did point out after the show that although the edit showed other queens coming at Jinkx many times, they actually edited out a lot more context to those conversations, because Jinkx would always talk back to the queens that doubted her. Yet the scenes of Jinkx defending herself were edited out of the episodes, which can most likely be attributed to them trying to make it seem like she was even more of an underdog than she already was. Which did get me thinking. There's no doubt that there was a lot of tension between Jinkx and the other queens, but it was never at the expense of Jinkx's confidence. I think if anything, Jinkx was always very confident in terms of what she knew she could deliver to every challenge, and mostly just felt annoyed or picked on by the queens who took issue with it. But anyways, on season 5, episode 5, we got to the Snatch Game, where she would end up winning after choosing a character completely out of left field that most people never even heard about. Little Edie was the cousin of First Lady Jacqueline Onassis, the wife of JFK. Edie was a very strange individual. The documentary Grey Gardens highlighted her unique fashion style, which incorporated a lot of headscarves. She would find ways of making herself happy by randomly dancing around the house, and overall just having a good time with a very down-to-earth attitude. But the documentary also showcases the challenging relationship that she had with her own mother. In a way, many people found themselves drawn to Little Edie for how resilient she was at expressing herself authentically. This character choice, along with a subsequent win on the episode, would represent how queens could use Snatch Game to pick iconic, unknown celebrities to sort of educate newer audiences to it. The next really iconic thing that Jinkx would do on the season was of course the Malambo #1 lip sync. So we all know the conversation around this topic, which is that production rigged this episode's outcome for Jinkx by providing them with a more campy song to perform together, especially when we consider that it was changed last minute, with Free Your Mind being the original song for the top 4. But honestly, not only has Jinkx come out in recent years to say that she would have also slayed Free Your Mind, but Malambo #1 wasn't a song that just benefited Jinkx. It benefited everyone that was in that top 4. I mean, Detox had already proven that she could be funny when it came to lip syncs, and Alaska was known for being able to incorporate comedy into her performances. If anything, Roxy was the most out of her element for that song. But even then, I think Roxy would have adapted and done an excellent job. Yet it was also Detox's 3rd time in the bottom, so eventually we got to the season 5 finale, and it was pretty even if we consider track records. I mean, yeah, Jinkx did have the best, but really all 3 of them had 2 challenge wins, and Alaska had never landed in the bottom 2. But Roxy ended up getting a bunch of hate that season, so it was very clear from an audience perspective that she was most likely not going to be winning the crown because of it. And so, after the official crowning of Jinkx Monsoon at a local bar, the first set of songs that she performed as America's Next Drag Superstar was Don't Cry For Me Argentina, Maybe This Time, and The Greatest Star, a symbolic way of celebrating the end of season 5 and the start of a new chapter in her life. Now, despite Jinkx being an underdog that won the crown, it didn't make everyone happy. Someone that was particularly particularly annoyed by Jinkx's win was none other than Nicki Minaj, who was very upfront in saying that she was a Roxy Andrews stan, and wasn't at all intrigued by Jinkx's drag, with quote, "I'm mad Jinkx made it this far in Drag Race. Yes, great comedy, but Roxy's face be serving beat." But like, all this shows me is that Nicki really was an OG fan of Drag Race from the beginning. Anyways, as Jinkx Monsoon's career grew bigger, fans began to notice a change in her appearance. In January 2016, Jinkx addressed comments that had been made online about her weight gain, which is something she'd have to deal with for many years to come. She questioned why so many people felt the need to comment on her body type, and how it has no relevance whatsoever on her talents as a performer. But that's sort of how fans are. And it isn't just Drag Race fans. Sometimes just people on the internet can be the harshest of critics. When you really think about it, comparing the fan base of Drag Race from 2013 compared to 2022, Season 5 Jinkx was one who had the odds stacked against her, with barely having any support from the queens on her season, but being able to succeed in the challenges, and reaching the finale alongside two queens that formed part of a group that weren't shy of expressing that they didn't like her. With that, she left Season 5 being a fan favorite, and one of the highest celebrated queens to earn herself a crown. But as more seasons began airing, the further away we got from Season 5, and the less relevant she seemed to be with the fandom. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jinkx was definitely still talked about, but it seemed that a lot of her career goals tended to be blown under the rug. She did end up getting significant roles on a lot of plays, especially within Broadway, and released many different albums. Now, when we talk about music, we've had dozens and dozens of queens come out with their own songs, albums, and music videos. Some find more success than others. But Jinkx Monsoon took a more serious approach to her songwriting, and it's not something that's necessarily tailored to the Drag Race fans, but really meant to attract people that share her own interests. Like, for example, the Cartoons and VODKA music video that featured a vast amount of different animation types that represented famous pop culture cartoons over the course of the past century. Along with that, Bob the Drag Queen has said that his personal favorite song of Jinkx is This Town, which is a song about how the course of time completely changes even the most familiar of places. Both these songs will be linked in the description. Speaking of music, one of Jinkx's favorite shows is Steven Universe, which is an iconic series from Cartoon Network that was pretty progressive in terms of characters and storylines, especially with the amount of LGBT representation that they showed. Jinkx expressed interest through Twitter about her interest to one day voice a character on Steven Universe, and eventually she actually got offered an opportunity to do so. Now, I'm not gonna lie, as a Steven Universe fan, I was kind of disappointed when I watched the episode that Jinkx cameoed in, because they hyped up the appearance so much only for it to be a 1-minute scene of a hologram video. But I can't complain too much, cause a win is a win. Yet believe it or not, Jinkx got into some small controversy within the fandom of Steven Universe, who weren't happy about Rebecca Sugar, the creator of the show, giving her the chance to voice one of the gems. According to the fans, the gems are supposed to be a species of non-binary individuals that are usually femme-presenting, and up until that point, they tended to only be voiced by women. But Jinkx argued that she had been openly non-binary for many years, and has always categorized herself under the trans umbrella. But nevertheless, she had to deal with the annoying people on the internet. Something that she'd have to get used to, because even as recently as this year, where after being announced as one of the newest characters on the Doctor Who franchise, she also received backlash with people criticizing the network for trying to be woke by casting someone like Jinkx Monsoon. But regardless of what people think of Jinkx Monsoon, it would take 9 years since the airing of Season 5 till we got to see her compete again on a season of Drag Race. Honestly, when I first heard that Jinkx was going to be on the first all-winner season, I was really curious to see how she'd do under the new format of the show. Her time on Season 5 was one where she clearly showed how refined her acting and comedy skills were. And yeah, she had some bad runways, but it was a different era. Most importantly, I was happy for the new viewers of the show to be introduced to the character that Jinkx is. After all, I felt that many people weren't really talking about her all that much in the years leading up to the all-winner season, which stemmed mostly from Jinkx not having the biggest social media presence. But she was still paid the respect she deserved. Even before I ended up finding out how all-winners played out, I really did think that Jinkx was gonna have some big competition with other queens who had won the show. Even on episode 1, while Jinkx didn't end up winning, her verse and performance was a lot better than I expected we would have gotten from her. It was catchy and well delivered. And since both episode 1 and episode 2 were released on the same day, Jinkx's Snatch Game of Judy Garland was sort of an instant realization to most fans that this was Jinkx's season to lose. The few times that she did bad this season were very noticeable and hard to deny, but there was so many moments where she excelled that it made it hard to see any other queen taking the crown instead of her. Subsequently, some fans had already heard many of the spoilers for the season, which tends to create preconceived ideas of why a season played out a certain way despite them not having watched the episode yet. In a way, conversations over the elimination order of a season occurs months in advance before the official release of the episode, so fans end up creating narratives that can't really be confirmed until the episode officially airs. But by that point, they've already made up their minds. For example, most people already knew that the top 2 was between Monet X Change and Jinkx Monsoon, but watching how the season played out, it made sense that she'd end up winning. I guess the bigger issue among people that feel Monet should have taken the crown comes from the sheer fact that Monet completely slayed her swish swish performance while Jinkx looked like a fish flopping around a stage. And also, Monet garnered many moments throughout her run on All-Star 7 that showcased how she was just as much of a contender to win. So it was kind of a fair argument. But ultimately, it was fair to give the crown to Jinkx, since it was based on their performance throughout the whole season rather than an individual lip sync. But let me know how you felt about her All-Star 7 win down below. Most recently, Jinkx has been doing her podcast, Hi Jinkx, and has been able to star in a sold-out show on Broadway. Plus, her future seems to be filled with so much more excitement. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Use the code on the screen to get 16 free meals plus free shipping. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Wendell Norris Realtor, Tyler Hendricks MD, Poppers Alberta, and Sari Tish. In the Gay Squad, we have Ethan Von Queer and Emma Malander. And in the Green Squad, we have Azure, Cayman Rider Furry, Franny Fishsticks, Edgar Allan Pup, O Nicole, The Only Sean, Soy Pablete, and LP. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at GreenGayYT, comment below what you thought about this topic, and let me know what you'd like my next video to be about. I'll see you guys next time.